Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of voice radio. And today's a little bit sad, ladies and gentlemen, because we are looking at the last Pokemon from Tag Bolt, which is getting its own video. We're still going to do a pointless cards video, and we need to talk about a couple of trainer cards that are getting reprinted. But this is the very last Pokemon that is getting its own video. But it's Farfetch'd. And who doesn't love Farfetch'd? Little duck running around with a leek that you can hit people with. That, ladies and gentlemen, sounds pretty gosh darned adorable. Now, I should, of course, mention that our translation here comes from the lovely David Hochmann over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. And it's a colourless Pokemon. You're weak to fighting, which means weakness to Buzzwole, which is not terribly ideal. It also means you don't really get any extra tricks. The retreat cost of 1 is quite nice because it's low and it gives us access to a skateboard. The weakness to lightning is not great because, I mean, they can play electro power, which means they get up to good damage really quickly. But then again, you got 80 HP. 80 HP is not ideal. Wow, that's a very mild way of putting it. The thing with 80 HP is, right, it's super low, but you can't use Professor Round's lecture to search out the Pokemon. So you end up in this awkward, annoying, sad middle ground, and then I get a little bit sad. Hey-ho. But what does Farfetch'd actually do? Well, the first attack is quite nice. 1 colourless energy, collect, draw 2 cards. This is good. Now, in a pre-release, this is nuts good. This is awesome. Because it's going to get you set up. And if you are in a pre-release, might I suggest quite nicely that you focus on a couple of Farfetch'd. Because the thing is that drawing cards is good. It gives you more options. And we have Pokemon at the moment that we play for this kind of attack. We've got Lapras. Lapras GX. Now, admittedly, Lapras draws 3 cards rather than 2, but it's for a coloured energy, not a colourless, and it's on a GX Pokemon that gives up 2 prizes, and that is one of the good things about Lapras. Now, don't get me wrong, Lapras hits 160 for free energy, that's a good attack, takes things down, etc. There's nothing wrong with Lapras in terms of an attacker, it's a very nice attacker. But in the early game, Lapras needs to get its Aqua Patch, and they need to make sure they've got their Volcanion Prism Star in pre-rotation. They really wanted to make sure they had their Max Elixir, and essentially, oh yeah, and also EXP shares since we lost Max Elixir. And then drawing cards in the early game with this has been really, really useful. The other one we see with this attack quite a lot is Verizon GX. Now, this is not seeing a huge amount of play, but it's got the exact same attack. 1 colourless energy, draw 2 cards. And what this does is set you up very, very nicely indeed. You're drawing 3 cards a turn. That's nice. But then, of course, this actually sees play with Unknown Hand. Unknown Hand says that if it's in the active and you've got 35 or more cards in hand, you may choose to win the game, which obviously you would. That would be a little bit silly. Maybe if you want the game to last a little bit longer so you've got less time for game 2 or whatever in a best of 3 series, maybe you stay in the active and pass for a couple turns before you win. But then again, your opponent might play a judge and then that would be terrible. But I digress. One of the things we like about Verizon is the GX attack that picks up all your Pokemon, which fills your hand, but another thing that we like is that it draws 2 cards, which helps to get you rolling. Well, Farfetch'd doesn't have the GX attack, so it cannot completely replace Verizon, but it does have an attack that draws 2 cards. And I just want to point out, there's a little Psyduck in the water on the artwork, which is amazing. Also, Farfetch'd is legit walking on water, which is a little bit weird, although I suppose ducks kind of can walk on water. Anyway, this is a decent setup attack. Is it better than something like a Alolan Vulpix's Beacon? Probably not, if I'm honest with you. But it's a decent attack to use for the first couple turns to draw some cards. And I like things like this because if your opponent goes and KOs it, you get access to Counter Catcher, to gust a Pokemon off their bench, or you get access to Counter Energy. Sometimes having a starter Pokemon can be really nice. This one's a decent one. But we also have a rather nice attack as well. 1 colourless energy, 20 damage. Before doing damage, you may discard a tool attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. If you do, this attack does 70 more damage. So now you've got the nice attack, but let's face it, if it just had the first attack, it's probably not getting its own video. But what we have is 90 damage for a single colourless energy on a basic Pokemon. Now, the fact that you're not hitting for weakness really sucks here. Because if you were hitting for weakness, this would be phenomenal. If you're hitting a water weakness, all of a sudden you're getting a one-hit KO on Blacephalon. If you're hitting psychic weakness, then Buzzwole goes down with either a Shrine of Punishment or a Choice Band. If you're hitting a fairy weakness, Rayquaza goes down. 90 damage is awesome when you're hitting for weakness. Now, this is still decent. You can use this to KO something like a Macargo that's got 90 HP. Or you can use it to KO something like a Malamar, which has got 90 HP. Or you can get a pre-evolution, something like a Zorua, that's got less than 90 HP. This is nice in terms of damage. The not hitting for weakness is horrible. Although, maybe it was intended. If this hit for weakness, it would be fully overpowered. But as it is, 90 damage is good. It's a 2-hit KO on something like a Blacephalon or a Rayquaza, which is quite nice. It's getting a bunch of damage onto the field. It's getting you up and rolling. And this really does paint Farfetch'd as an early game Pokemon. Farfetch'd is something you want to use early on in the game just to get yourself set up. Draw some cards, get a bit of damage on the field, etc. The problem with this second attack, and it is a potential problem, what happens if there's no tool on your opponent's active Pokemon? Now, honestly, the answer to that question is you're only doing 20 damage, which is very sad. So this is not one of those I can use it whenever I feel like it, yay go me kind of things. This is something which you need to take a bit of care over, and it's something that you need to use at the right time. But at the right time, this could be an absolutely wonderful Pokemon. It can do what you want it to do. It just sucks it's not hitting for weakness. But the other thing we need to mention here, it doesn't just do the extra damage if you've got a tool on. You get to get rid of the tool. Now, what would have been awesome is if Floatstone was still in the format. Now, to be fair, Floatstone is still in the format in Expanded, but if Floatstone was in Standard, this would be so much better. Because stuff like Macargo would often have a Floatstone attached to it, so you bring them active and then you've got the KO. Or something like a Garbodor, which has also rotated, but again, so has Floatstone. Expanded, this would work. They have more than 90 HP, they've got 100, but you discard the Floatstone and then potentially strand them in the active. There would be more things that had a Floatstone attached to them. Now, don't get me wrong, you're still going to catch a whole bunch of Pokemon that have a Choice Band attached, and that's going to be good. You're going to get rid of something like an EXP share occasionally, and that's going to be good. But I fear that this is one of those Pokemon where it's just not quite gonna do enough. And it's not gonna quite do it often enough. And I think that's the problem with Farfetch'd. There are going to be plenty of times that you get to either take a key KO or to do 90 damage while getting rid of a tool that your opponent needs. And there's no Eco Arm in the format at the moment. Tools are quite hard to get back. But there's going to be plenty of other times where your opponent doesn't have a tool attached and you're doing 20 damage. And similarly, drawing 2 cards is nice, but we've arguably got better Pokemon that we can use for attacks like this. I'm going to give it between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would, of course, be barbaric. It's not a bad card, but I don't know if it's a good card. I don't know if it's worth playing very much, which is a bit sad. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about Farfetch'd, so please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, but please do remember the most important rule of all: be nice, please. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays for some more Wassy action. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.